Hello there, this is Bart Sibrel of Sibrel.com. Several friends have told me that they were not aware that I was interviewed by Joe Rogan a few months ago, so there's a link to that interview in the description of this video. I went to Austin, Texas. It was a 3-hour interview, just like he did with Trump. And to tell you the truth, it was a bit exhausting because I know what Joe really believes, but he played devil's advocate for 3 hours. And normally after an interview, I'm like, that went great or that was terrible. After that interview, I was like, what was that? However, look at this review on Sibrel.com of the Joe Rogan interview that I had. Plus, he afterwards read the book. He says, if you still believe that we landed on the moon and our astronauts walked on its surface in 1969, after reading this book, I don't know what to say. Prior to watching Joe Rogan interview Bart Sibrel regarding the Apollo 11 mission, I firmly believed the story. I never questioned its authenticity. Suddenly, the lie became so clearly obvious, and I delved further into the topic. That's why I read this book, and it only further confirmed that the whole Apollo mission was one big hoax. While Mr. Sibrel belabors some points excessively, perhaps that is what's necessary to get the truth to sink in. The fact is, the CIA runs this country. They killed Kennedy, according to his own relatives. They faked the beginning of the Vietnam War, which killed 58,220 of their own soldiers. And I don't think they're going to have a problem faking a video image. It's just the fact that it's a positive lie that people have a problem giving it up. If a president of the United States wants to bring down the corruptive federal government system, they have to expose the moon landing fraud. It's the one thing that Americans will get angry enough about to protest, to put an end to corruption. You can't keep sweeping it under the floor forever. You want to win the American people over to your side, whoever becomes president next, tell them the truth about the moon landing fraud, and you will have their support. Now, Joe said he wanted to have me back on and debate a person by the name of Brian Keating. Now, I would rather debate someone like, what's that astronaut's name? Charles Duke, who claims to be a Christian while he's lying to the world and accessory to multiple homicides, or the administrator of NASA, rather than a victim of their deception like Brian Keating is. Nevertheless, I'm willing to do that if Joe really means what he says and is not pulling my leg and really wants to have a one-on-one debate about this. What people don't understand is that the faking of the moon landing, which I assure you is the way it went down, is more profound historically than if they had actually went. And this great truth is being withheld from mankind that the most powerful nation on earth faked the greatest event in human history. After all, today, with 5 decades better technology, NASA can only send astronauts 1,000th the distance to the moon. So you can't go to the moon on the first attempt ahead of schedule with 1,000,000th the computing power of a cell phone, when today you can only send astronauts 1,000th as far into outer space. It's the only time in the history of the world technology was greater in the past than in the future, if they really went, which they didn't. And that's why it can't be true. You see, among many other things that we'll discuss in the interview with Joe Rogan, which is linked below.